Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart. So for this video, we're going to be talking about which Super Mario game most needs to be remastered. Now, of course, I'm sure most of you are going to point towards Super Mario 64. It's the oldest game, therefore it is the one that needs to be most remastered. But I'm going to argue otherwise. I'm going to talk about the points for all three different games that are supposedly rumored to be getting a remaster this year, and those games are Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. Now I do want your opinion on this, so of course, share in the comments below, but I'm also going to be posting a poll on Twitter, so if you want to go ahead and check it out, it's linked in the description below, my Twitter page, the poll will be there, and while we're at it, there's also my Discord that is linked in the description below if you want to join the conversation with others who follow the channel, and then also, there is my Patreon page if you want to help support the channel a little bit more. There are some perks and benefits for those who want to go ahead and do that, such as being credited at the end of our videos, or getting your own personal topic talked about during the podcast, and even having access to the After the Cast series. But now let's go ahead and make the arguments for the three different games in terms of which one needs to be remastered the most. So from a visual perspective, yes, Super Mario 64 has not aged as gracefully as Mario Sunshine or Mario Galaxy. So you could definitely make the argument very easily that visually, Mario 64 is the one that needs to be most remastered. But here's the thing, my definition of remaster is different from a remake. And I think for Mario 64, it's so far behind the other two games that in order for it to be fully getting the look that some people want, it's going to have to be remade as opposed to just being remastered. You see, I define remaster as taking the original work and enhancing it. But a remake is where you take a game and you rebuild it from the ground up as a whole new project with new technology, and that is not what they're going to be doing with Mario 64, according to the rumors. It is going to be a remaster. Now, if it ends up that they're using the Odyssey engine to make Mario 64, that would be amazing, but I just don't think they're going to be doing that. So when it comes to remastering the game, there's only so much they could do. They can enhance the textures, the lighting, and maybe add a couple other effects here and there. I just don't really expect them to change that much about the game to the point where it looks something like Mario Odyssey. I just don't think they're going to be able to do that for Mario 64. So while I would agree that it definitely is the one that needs the most visual oomph in this remaster, there's only so much that can be done about it, so I feel like that kind of hurts its claim to being the one that deserves the remaster the most. When it comes to Super Mario Sunshine, when you play the game back in the day on your big giant tube television, it probably looked pretty good. I thought it looked amazing. But if you play it upscale into HD on Dolphin, or if you just play it on a Plaza television, you may start to notice that the textures are pretty blurry, and it just kind of needs to be redone a little bit. So in a remaster, they could clean up all those textures so everything looks a lot cleaner and brighter and clear. And like the Wind Waker, I feel like with a new lighting engine, the game could really take it to a whole other level in terms of visual oomph. And I think it could look really good. And all the work needed to do all of that is pretty much what a remaster would entail. Now for Super Mario Galaxy, I feel like that's a game that can go back to and it still looks pretty good to me. Yes, it's a little blurry. Yes, the textures don't hold up as well. And it definitely would look a lot better remastered, but compared to Mario Sunshine or 64, I think it is the one that holds up the most. So I don't think it needs to be remastered as much as the other two. But the real bulk of the argument here is going to come down to controls and gameplay, because that's what's going to need to be remastered the most, I think. When it comes to all three games, I think all of them are going to need reworked camera controls. When it comes to Mario 64, it was Nintendo's first foray into 3D platforming, so they had a lot of work to do in terms of figuring out how to make an actual 3D adventure platforming game. So yeah, the camera probably could have been a lot better, and by today's standards, it just doesn't hold up well at all. So definitely probably just throw in an Odyssey-like kind of camera for Mario 64, and it will probably look and play a lot better. For Mario Sunshine, I think it has the right style of camera, but it just isn't perfectly executed. I think if they were to take the Odyssey camera, just like I suggested for 64, and throw into Sunshine, it would work really well. And when it comes to Mario Galaxy, yes, I also want it to have a camera kind of like what we see in Odyssey. You see, there are some times in Galaxy we're going to go and reach a certain point, and you're going to want to rotate the camera left or right, but the game will not let you. The camera isn't so much an issue in the sense that you don't see where you need to go, but in terms of wanting to be able to see everything around you, you don't always have that option, so I would definitely like them to rework the camera so you can see more of the beautiful Galaxy world. Going beyond camera though, the game that I think doesn't really need too much changes in terms of the way it controls is actually Super Mario 64. Let me explain. So, with Mario 64, if you were to go back and play it on, say, for example, Wii U Virtual Console like I've been doing, it plays really well on a Pro controller. Sure, if you were to go back on the 64 controller with that joystick and try and fight Bowser and try to spin him around and you use your whole palm to spin it around and it sort of really hurts a lot, yeah, I totally get that, and that is definitely something that shouldn't be the case with a remaster, but it's going to be playable on Switch controllers, so I don't really think it's going to be a problem. I've played the game on Wii U Pro controllers or Wii Pro controllers, and it works a lot better than it did on 64. So the game's kind of already been remastered to an extent simply by having a different controller. The point being that really not that much work needs to be done in order to fix up the controls beyond the camera for Mario 64, in my opinion. Now, it's not to say I don't think you need to rework or sort of tweak a couple little things when it comes to wall jumping and things of that nature, but I don't think it's anything too significant, just some small little tweaks. With Super Mario Sunshine, on the other hand, that's kind of another issue. You see, with Super Mario Sunshine, that game was not received as critically well as Mario 64 or Mario Galaxy. There are some things about the controls for Sunshine that just didn't fit well for too many people. In terms of controlling Mario and moving around and doing the platforming, I gotta say that I do agree that it feels a little bit harder than the other games. And part of that I think is because of how twitchy Mario feels. The way he goes from standing to running just feels very twitchy and it doesn't seem to flow quite as well. So I think that needs to be greatly tweaked in order for Mario to feel and run a lot better. I might be starting to sound like a broken record here, but what I think they need to do is make Mario Sunshine control like Mario Odyssey. And the reason I keep bringing up Super Mario Odyssey is because Mario Odyssey, in my opinion, is the culmination of all the years of work Nintendo has done on 3D Mario games. They've mastered it with Super Mario Odyssey. So adapting these 3D Mario games to play a little bit more like Mario Odyssey, in my opinion, is the right way to go about it. Now, I'm not trying to say to add a whole bunch of Odyssey mechanics, I think they should still be their games, but in terms of the way Mario moves around the world and the way the camera controls, I think those things definitely are really important in terms of remastering these games. For Mario Galaxy, the way Mario moves around the world I think is fine. I don't really think it has too much of an issue. It's really Mario Sunshine that I think has the biggest problem, and then Mario 64 in terms of wall jumping is a little annoying, but otherwise, that's pretty much it. I think Mario Sunshine has the biggest issues when it comes to sort of controlling and moving around the world with Mario. When it comes to controls, there's really not much more I can sort of consider in terms of what needs to be remastered for Mario 64. I think everything I've mentioned is pretty much everything they need to do. But I do think there's more to talk about when it comes to Mario Sunshine and Mario Galaxy. You see, with Mario Sunshine, given that it's going to be on the Switch, they're going to need to find a way to sort of fix the analog controls because there are no analog shoulder buttons on the Switch. So for Flood, there's going to be two different intensities of shooting out water. They probably need to map that to two different shoulder buttons in order to make it work this time around, which I don't think will be too hard, but it is something that needs to be done. And for Super Mario Galaxy, they're going to have to fix the sort of IR controls because there is no IR pointer like the way it was on the Wii. So they're going to have to map the cursor to either the analog stick or to motion controls. And when it comes to the spin attack that you had in Galaxy where you would simply waggle on the Wii, they're going to have to map that to a button. Now that may sound a little basic to a lot of you guys, but if you look at it in the same way that Cappy was used in Mario Odyssey where that was also mapped to a button, I think it will work just fine. The point being though, that both the spin attack and the pointer controls will have to be remastered on the Switch in order for it to work properly. With everything I've mentioned so far, I really don't think there's anything else that needs to be remastered for Mario Galaxy or Mario 64. We've talked about everything for those games in my opinion that needs to be remastered. But Mario Sunshine still has some things that in my opinion need to be remastered, and that's why I think it's the game that most needs to be remastered. So here's the thing, as I said before, the game was not received really well. Part of that I think was how twitchy the controls felt and it just didn't seem to flow as well as other Mario games, but also I think it has to do with the pace of the game. A lot of people didn't like how the blue coins were handled. Either Nintendo's gonna have to change the amount of blue coins you get or change the locations you get them in or simply give us an easier way of finding them, maybe with some sort of blue coin map or maybe even adding some other levels in place of the blue coins. The point being that a lot of the critiques that Mario Sunshine has faced has had to do with the blue coins and the pace of the game. In other words, Super Mario Sunshine might need a little bit more work in terms of being remastered to sort of hold itself up to the same level as Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario 64. I love the game, but there are some things that need to be done, and that's why I think Super Mario Sunshine is the game that needs to be most remastered. Sure, visually Mario 64 lags behind the most, but there's only so much that can be done. Mario Sunshine still needs to be remastered quite a bit visually, and Mario Galaxy, while it does also need to be remastered, it just isn't as much as Mario Sunshine. And when it comes to controls, all of them need reworked camera controls in my opinion, but the ones that needed the most are Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine. But going beyond camera controls, the ones that need to be sort of changed up a bit for the Switch are both Mario Galaxy and Sunshine, not so much 64 in my opinion, but once we go past that, both 64 and Galaxy are kind of fine. Sunshine still needs to sort of be fixed up a bit when it comes to the pace of the game and the blue coins. So that's why I think Super Mario Sunshine is the game that needs to be most remastered. But what do you guys think? Is there anything else about Mario 64 or Mario Galaxy or even Mario Sunshine that you think needs to be reworked a little bit for these rumored remasters? Let me know in the comments below or on the Twitter poll on my Twitter page. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.